baby. For real, I'm a bad boy. I ain't even signed for that, you know, I don't need no block.
Gucci's eyes, something ain't right with this guy. He just looked me dead in my eyes, and what I saw back terrified me. What I was looking back at absolutely terrified me.
Gucci Mane should have been a ghost by now.
It's real serious then when we talking about like actually trying to like set somebody to take someone's lives. It's on a whole nother level.
By all logic, by the rules of the streets, by the number of enemies that have circled his name, he shouldn't still be here. And yet he is.
The old Gucci still there.
Nah, that's the truth, man.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody comes to you try to kill you, you know.
Ask anyone who came up in Atlanta's trap era, and they'll tell you, Gucci wasn't just another rapper. He was a force, a myth, a legend, built on the kind of stories that don't always make it to the blogs.
Gucci is a bona fide, we know that.
He survived a murder case, beat allegations, went to war with some of the biggest names in the game, and when it looked like the system had finally buried him for good, he walked out of federal prison leaner, richer, and somehow more untouchable than ever. But even legends cast shadows. And behind Gucci's reinvention, behind the glow-up, behind the perfect veneers and motivational tweets, there's something darker. Because Gucci isn't just a survivor, he's the center of something bigger. A pattern, a curse.
A lot of people like try to put out this crazy narrative about 1017 as if it's like, you know, a curse.
A mystery that keeps repeating itself. His artists, his chosen ones, keep falling, arrested, gone too soon, or just vanishing off the map completely. Coincidence, bad decisions? Or is there something about the empire Gucci built that demands sacrifice? Let's talk about it. Born Radrick Davis in Birmingham, Alabama, Gucci moved to Atlanta at a young age, immersing himself in the streets that would later shape his music.
I started out in Birmingham, Alabama. I was raised there. I moved here when I was like 9 years old, went to school in Atlanta.
But before Atlanta became home, before Zone 6 became a stomping ground, Gucci lived in Bessemer with his grandfather in an old house on 1017 First Avenue. If that number sounds familiar, it should. It's the DNA of his brand, his empire. But childhood wasn't built for nostalgia. His grandfather passed from a heart attack, and by 4th grade, his mother moved them to East Atlanta. Now let's talk about the father, the man who was never really there, but somehow always present. Ralph Dudley wasn't just a name on a birth certificate. He was a hustler, a smooth talker, a con man. And Gucci, he saw it all. The swagger, the finesse, the way his dad never worked a day in his life, but still made it look easy. My pops was a hustler, straight up, Gucci once said. You feel his hands? Smoother than my mama's, and she was the one clocking in every day. That street game? It wasn't taught, it was inherited. And the name? That came from his dad too. Gucci's grandfather, stationed in Italy, fell in love with a high-end luxury of the brand. Came back calling his sons Gucci Man and Gucci Boy. It stuck, and in time it passed down to Radrick.
Gucci Man, the flair, you know what I'm saying?
But growing up, he wasn't trying to be little Gucci. He wanted his own identity, introduced himself as Ray or Black, anything but the name that tethered him to a man he barely knew. Then came the streets, the real education. According to Gucci himself, his first taste of hustling wasn't by accident. He watched his older brother learn the game. And then one Christmas, his mother gave him $50. Instead of toys, he bought crack. That was his introduction to the life. And from there, it was only a matter of time before the streets came calling. By 2001, he was already getting his first taste of jail. Days after getting kicked out of Georgia Perimeter College, he got caught selling to an undercover cop. A quick 90-day stint in county, probation, and a cold realization. This life, it wasn't forgiving, but it also wasn't something he was ready to walk away from. Music became the escape. And beef, well, that came with the territory. Young Jeezy, the tension between them is Atlanta legend at this point. It all started with a track so icy, a hit so undeniable both men wanted to claim it, but Gucci, he put it on Trap House, his own independent album. Jeezy wasn't having it. He said Gucci never paid him for the feature. The streets were buzzing.
Gucci Man was talking about Jeezy in the car. And I'm like, talking about Jeezy.
And then the diss tracks came.
That Gucci was performing that. So at the club that night, Gucci did this whole freestyle dissing Jeezy.
Jeezy fired first though with Stay Strapped, a lyric buried in the track, a straight up bounty on Gucci's chain. 10 stacks, Jeezy rapped. Snatch that off his neck, I'll shoot you 10 stacks so I can cremate him. That wasn't just a shot, it was a declaration. Gucci responded the only way he knew how. Round 1, called Jeezy Fake, and made it clear this wasn't just a back and forth for the fans. This was real. But the streets, they don't do subliminals. And in May 2005, things took a deadly turn. 4 men ran up in a house Gucci was staying at. A fight broke out, gunfire. And when it was over, one of Jeezy's associates was dead. Gucci turned himself in. The charge. The result, self-defense. The case was dropped, but the reputation, that would never fade. This wasn't rap beef anymore, this was war. And it was just the beginning, because on one night in May 2005, Gucci experienced something straight out of a crime thriller. The story goes like this. Gucci was at a woman's apartment, just another night, just another link-up, until she opened the door. 5 men stormed in, not 1, not 2, 5. They weren't there to talk. One had a weapon, one had brass knuckles. One had green tape, and you don't bring green tape unless you plan to use it. A scuffle broke out, fists flying, threats echoing off the walls. Then someone shouted it, the words that changed everything. Shoot him, boy! Instinct took over. Gucci reached for the nearest weapon and let loose. Chaos erupted, bullets flew, bodies scrambled, and just like that, the home invasion became a crime scene. By the time the dust settled, 1 man was down, the rest gone. The next morning, Henry Lee Clark III, better known in the streets as Pookie Lock, a name tied to none other than Young Jeezy, was found dead near a Georgia school. Coincidence? The streets didn't think so. Gucci turned himself in, but he wasn't about to start snitching. His lawyer made that clear. He's not saying anything. I'm his lawyer, and I'm not letting him say anything. But behind the silence, the facts were stacking up. An independent witness saw the men go inside. The woman admitted she set him up. And Gucci? He had no choice? They tried to off me, he later said from jail. I did what I had to do. The law saw it the same way. By January 2006, the charge was dropped. Self-defense. Case closed. But in hip-hop, this was far from over. Gucci walked out of jail a free man, and his reputation was cemented in something much heavier than just music. The industry, the streets, even his enemies, they all saw him differently now. He wasn't just Gucci Mane, the rapper. He was Gucci Mane, the man who survived an ambush, pulled the trigger, and lived to tell the tale. After that, Gucci doubled down. His music got darker. His street cred skyrocketed. He became the definition of an untouchable trap kingpin. And in the process, he built 1017 Records, a label meant to give young talent a shot at success. But success came at a cost. If you signed to 1017, you were either destined for rap superstardom or a jail cell. The pattern is almost eerie. OJ the Juiceman shot multiple times. Fugiano, 5-year prison sentence. Rallo, drug charges, locked up for years. Enchanting, passed away tragically.
Pooh Shiesty locked up. K. Shade dropped. Roboy dropped. Big Scar dead.
And even Gucci was getting his own share of the 1017 tragedies. Pusha T once rapped, "If you know, you know." And when it comes to 1017, the streets know. Some artists blame the fast life that comes with Gucci's label, fame, money, and the same street mentality that Gucci himself came from. Others whisper about something darker, a curse that follows anyone who signs that deal. Is 1017 cursed? Or is it just the reality of street rap? Some believe Gucci Mane is to blame, that he signs artists with troubled pasts and doesn't guide them away from their demons. Others argue that he tries, but the streets are unforgiving. Even Gucci himself has faced downfall after downfall, legal trouble, drug addiction, and betrayal from his closest allies. I mean, in 2007, when he founded the record label, Gucci himself faced robbery allegations after a heated argument turned into an armed confrontation. And in November 2009, when he failed to complete his court-ordered community service, the judge had enough. Gucci Mane wasn't a candidate for probation anymore. Inside the courtroom, the back and forth played out like a scripted drama. Lawyers sparred and arguments flew. Gucci's defense tried to paint a picture. The man is a changed person. They present letters, proof of community service, anything to shift the narrative. The judge listened, but he's seen this play before. Gucci's history is stacked against him. Aggravated battery, reckless behavior. The prosecution isn't letting him walk easy. By November 2010, he was out, briefly, and then right back in. This time it's a wild scene. Gucci in a white Hummer driving like a man with nothing to lose. Running lights, swerving into oncoming lanes. An off-duty officer catches him. The chase ends outside a body shop where Gucci and another man are mid-argument. The cops step in, Gucci ignores them. The air thickens, tempers flare, and before anyone can blink, Gucci swings. A punch lands. Chaos erupts. The cops don't hesitate. Pepper spray, cuffs, charges. The list is long. Obstruction, reckless driving, damage to government property. It should have been another open and shut case. But then, a new twist, Gucci's legal team files a special plea, mental incompetence. He's in no state to stand trial, they argue, and for once the court agrees. He's sent off, not to a prison cell, but to a psychiatric hospital. He was eventually released in 2011, and just days after his release, he walked into a tattoo parlor and did something no one could have predicted. He got an ice cream cone tattooed on his face. 3 scoops, lightning bolts, the word bruh. It's a statement, a message, a permanent middle finger to anyone who ever doubted he'd do something that wild. Years later, he'd reflect on that moment. I was going through something, he admitted. If I could do it all over again, I probably wouldn't have done it. But in that moment, in that space, it made sense. Gucci was living his truth, ice cold. Now, Gucci Mane is a completely different man, right? Yet the chaos within 1017 never stopped. So what's really going on here? Is Gucci Mane saving artists, or is he leading them to destruction? And most importantly, is the 1017 curse real? Lots of fans think so, but let's ask the victims, starting with Lil Wop. Lil Wop idolized Gucci, even named himself after Guap, and got the ice cream cone tattooed on his face. He had ties to Famous Dex and Trippie Redd, and came up when SoundCloud Rap was taking over. When Gucci launched 1017 Eskimo, Lil Wop was one of the first artists he signed. It should have worked, but like so many before him, it didn't. The label didn't move how he expected. After a few months, he was vocal about it, said they weren't doing enough for him. By 2018, he left. And the music? It never really went anywhere after that. Instead, he pivoted to OnlyFans, and then later came out as bi.
And women. Gucci Mane's old artist, Lil Wop, came out recently as bi.
And whatever admiration he had for Gucci, gone. By 2022, he was calling him a weirdo, saying he wanted nothing to do with 1017. But that's not the worst thing to happen to a 1017 artist. Asian Doll thought she could outrun it. She was the first female rapper Gucci ever signed, and it should have been a breakthrough moment. Other labels wanted her, but she picked 1017. At first, it seemed like the right move. Then the frustration started.
You've been through so much.
A lot.
So much. It feels like, you know what I mean? It's in a...
She missed the freedom of being independent. Labels plan everything. When you drop, how often you drop, what image you push. Asian wasn't rocking with it. Before 1017, she dropped 6 mixtapes in 3 years.
I wake up in the morning, it was rap, rap, rap.
Wow.
Go to sleep, rap, rap, rap. So they really like groom me to be like...
Under the label, she had to wait her turn. It didn't sit right with her. By 2020, she wanted out. She told Gucci, and just like that, he let her go. No drama, no hard feelings, but the curse still found her. Not long after leaving, she got hit with drug charges in Georgia, spent a few nights in jail. Then in 2022, another arrest. This time, she'd been dodging court for over a year, speeding without a license. It wasn't a major case, but the damage was done. Her career lost momentum. And in this industry, once you start slipping, it's almost impossible to climb back up. It was clear 1017 Eskimo wasn't working. Gucci poured millions into it and trying to make stars out of his signees. But the curse took them all down, so he did what Gucci Mane does best. He reinvented. The new 1017 was born, and this time it felt different. Pooh Shiesty, Big Scar, Fujiano, Hot Boy West, Enchanting. The roster was stacked with talent and momentum. When they dropped So Icy Boys, it felt like a new era. Gucci had finally built a label that could stand. But that curse, it wasn't finished. If anything, it came back stronger. Fujiano had the kind of street cred that makes for rap legend. He did time for burglary and robbery, but came out focused. Signing with 1017 looked like the turning point. He was moving right, making music, staying out of trouble. Then, chaos. A shootout happened at a club during one of his shows. The curse had found him too. Nobody knows exactly how it all started, but the whispers say Fugiano's ops crashed the show and things spiraled fast. A few words, a few wrong moves. Then, the whole place turned into a war zone. Guns came out, bullets started flying. Fans ran for cover, ducking behind chairs and scrambling out of the way. When the smoke cleared, 8 people had been hit, 2 never made it out. Fugiano wasn't the one pulling the trigger, but his boy, Yarquez Cooper, wasn't so lucky. The courts pinned him down for taking the life of an innocent woman that night, and they threw the book at him. 50 years behind bars. Fugiano had already taken a hit from the fallout, but the worst was still coming. In December 2020, cops pulled him in for being a felon with a gun. The judge let him go on a $50,000 bond, but instead of playing it safe, he did the unthinkable. Cut off his ankle monitor and hit the road. The feds weren't having it though. A few months later, they caught up to him, and now he's looking at 5 years locked down. But Fugiano wasn't the only new 1017 artist who got jammed up. Pooh Shiesty stepped into the game like he owned it, dropping heat like Hell Night, Chopper Talk, and Day One. The numbers were crazy. Gucci Mane took notice, signed him in 2020, and from there, it was like watching a rocket take off. Shiesty linked up with Gucci for Still Remember, then kept the momentum rolling with heavyweights like Lil Baby and Lil Durk. Pooh Shiesty could have had the game in a chokehold. Instead, he fumbled bad. In October 2020, in a Florida hotel parking lot, Shiesty and his crew pull up to buy drugs and sneakers. But instead of paying, he pulls a Draco and lets off a shot. And if that wasn't wild enough, this all went down across the street from a police station. He bonded out, but he wasn't done making headlines. A few months later, he was back in cuffs, this time for allegedly firing at a security guard in a strip club. The case fell apart when the witness changed his story, but the robbery charge, no such luck. In 2022, Shiesty pleaded guilty and got the same fate as Fugiano, 5 years behind bars. For new 1017, the hits kept coming. Then there was Roboy in Tampa, Florida, 2020. Gucci hit his DMs at 4 a.m., and just like that, he was in. He had the first verse on 1017 loaded, and for a minute it looked like he was next up. But then, the rumors started. A man claimed Roboy had given him an AP watch, and suddenly the internet was flooded with speculation. Roboy tried to shut it down on Instagram, but in the process, he used a slur that sent social media into a frenzy. Then he took another L, claiming Gucci's 1017 chain was fake and that he'd already been dropped from the label. The fallout was fast. Burglary charges, a concealed weapon charge, and just like that, his career never got off the ground. But the biggest blow to new 1017 was Big Scar. Memphis-born, he was a blood cousin to Pooh Shiesty and on the verge of something huge. He signed with Gucci in 2020, but before he could even settle into his success, he got shot in the hip. The bullet tore through him, hit his appendix, and left him needing surgery. But he bounced back, started dropping heat, made XXL's freshman class in 2022. Then came the tour announcement. Key Glock, big stage, bigger future, but none of it happened. On December 22nd, 2022, Big Scar was at his girlfriend's house when the addiction he'd been fighting for years finally won. An accidental overdose. Another young star gone too soon. Memphis had been good to Gucci's label. Too good. The city had talent, hunger, that raw energy that made stars. But it also had a dark side. One by one, new 1017's artists kept falling, if not to the streets, then to their own demons. At this point, if you're a rapper from Memphis, maybe, just maybe, you should sign with anyone except Gucci. Because in 2024, yet another one of his artists, FTO Set, got arrested. The pattern is undeniable. Set was still deep in the trenches when Gucci called him up. Saw something in him.
Gucci like want to talk to me and chopped it up with him for like a good 30 second quick
Told him he wanted to change his life. I see me in you, Gucci said. A lifeline, an escape. And for a minute it looked like it worked. Set signed the contract, started buzzing. Everything was looking up. Then, boom, in February 2024, his bond on an old case got revoked. Back in 2022, Set got arrested for running from the cops with a stolen Glock, a switch, and a stash of weed. He bonded out, but now the past came back to collect. Why the bond got revoked remains unclear, but Set hopped on IG, told his fans he'd be home soon, and just like that, the cycle repeats. Out, in, it's like a revolving door. But Gucci keeps signing street dudes, he can't seem to help it. In a recent episode of All Things Keisha Kawar, his wife Keisha even asked him about it. So the streets want to know, she started, her tone sharp, deliberate. Why all your 1017 artists keep going to jail? No warm-up, no sugarcoating, straight to the controversy.
So the streets want to know why all your 1017 artists keep going to jail.
Gucci paused, blindsided, his usual cool flicker just for a second. Oh wow, he said, shifting in his seat. So that's how we gonna start? But Gucci Mane isn't one to dodge. He leaned in, settled himself, and spoke the truth. He knew these artists, understood them, because he was them. I was one of those type of artists, he admitted. I was always going back and forth to jail. There was no need for pretense. His rap sheet spoke for itself. Years spent in and out of the system. The same cycle he now watched his signees fall into. But unlike the critics, he wasn't about to turn his back on them. I try to help those artists that I feel I see a lot of myself in, he explained. And if trouble found them, if they slipped up, he wasn't running. He stood by them, supported them, even when they were behind bars.
Through their little bumps or whatever they're going through, but I feel like if I'm not helping them, who else gonna help them?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
They going through their little bumps or whatever, he said, almost protective. But if I'm not helping them, who else gonna help them? But here's the thing, Gucci can hand them the opportunity. He can't make them take it. They come from the streets, and a lot of them just can't leave it behind. And when you can't shake the past, sometimes the past comes back to claim you. That's not a curse, that's just reality. Gucci had also been faced with a difficult choice. The last time he committed a criminal offense was on September 14th, 2013, just after midnight, near an intersection at Moreland and East Confederate Avenue. A friend had called the police, concerned about Gucci's erratic behavior. Officers arrived, and things escalated fast. Gucci was furious, cursing, and threatening. He even told the cops he would hit them up. The search revealed everything you'd expect in a rapper gone rogue scenario. A loaded point, they had to sedate him. Emergency responders took him straight to Grady Hospital, where he was charged with disorderly conduct, felony possession of a firearm, possession of a controlled substance, and carrying a concealed weapon without a license. 2 weeks later, the charges stacked higher: possession by a convicted felon, probation violations, and then the feds stepped in. On December 3rd, 2013, he was arraigned in federal court. 2 counts of firearm possession as a convicted felon, a maximum sentence of 10 years and a $250,000 fine per count. 5 months into federal custody, Gucci pleaded guilty. He admitted to possession as a convicted felon. The punishment was 39 months in federal prison. And just when you think it's over, another hit on September 15th, 2014. An additional 3-year sentence from Fulton County for the champagne bottle attack. It was official. Gucci wasn't seeing freedom anytime soon. Then, on May 26, 2016, Gucci Mane walked out of federal prison. And the transformation was shocking. Within hours, he dropped first day out the feds, letting the world know he wasn't wasting any time. Fans saw the first images of the new Gucci and the internet spiraled. Something was different. Actually, everything was different. The weight was gone. Gucci went from 290 pounds to a lean 190. His teeth had perfect veneers.
Hey, how y'all doing? I got a statement prepared I want to speak to y'all about.
His speech, clear, precise, none of the signature slur that fans had come to know. The theories were insane. People swore he was a clone. That's not Gucci, they insisted. That's some government experiment. The man who once rapped about loving jail and street life was now in the gym, eating squash, tracking his water intake, and marrying Keisha Kawar. But Gucci heard the rumors and he shut them down. I ain't no clone, he told interviewers. I just got my life together. Clean eating, discipline, a woman who kept him on track. It was a different Gucci Mane. Fast forward to now, over a decade since his last arrest. The man who once spiraled through courts, clubs, and cuffs now stood as proof that a little bit of act right and the right woman can change everything. Maybe his artists will eventually realize this too and turn the 1017 curse around.